So, hey Chris, thanks for accepting this call. You're one of the most interesting people in the studio slash agency slash productized services space at the moment. You created the Alaska studio, and you just posted something today that's really interesting. You said, I quote, "Today marks 12 months since starting to build a 1 million plus design studio while having a baby." So first, congratulations for both. That's
Thank
actually
you so
crazy.
Yeah.
And the first question I have in mind is, were you expecting posting this 12 months ago?
Well, firstly, thanks for having me. It's good to share my story and speak to people about it, because I know I've been speaking to you a little bit along the way about the process and things.
Yeah.
And yeah, definitely not. I did not expect this at all. Like I kind of started it with a hypothesis that, there's a kind of gap in crypto Web3 for like good design studios, and I kind of jumped at it. And my thinking was I'll be happy if I can just reach my previous salary in terms of income.
Okay.
I also kind of knew that it was one of those things where starting an agency, there's usually probably a slow period, and bit by bit you build reputation, get clients, get referrals. And so I had kind of expected to be like a slow starting point and then build up. And so I kind of knew that I was like, okay, it may not even hit that salary mark by the end of the first year, but if it shows momentum and promise, then I'll continue going. And yeah, it's been literally today is like the 12-month anniversary of like officially opening the doors and being like, okay, no clients, let's go. So yeah, very, very
Nice.
big year, but definitely not what I expected.
Nice. Yeah, so like I said, I've been following you and following the journey. It was pretty interesting to witness. So let's take a bit like back and let's try to understand, because I think what's really interesting with founders is where they actually came from. And I suppose you maybe didn't thought when you started your career to create maybe your own studio. So what was like the catalyst, like what made you want to start Alaska? I'm curious.
Yeah, it had never really been in my like dream goal thing to do a studio. Like I had thought about it at certain times throughout my career, but it was never anything serious. I'd always like had the opportunity to do it with other people, but I always turned it down.
Okay.
And I guess my goal had always been to like pick up the skills along the way. Like I've always worked as a designer. I went from like senior designer, art director to more UX design. But along the way, I've always been like absorbing knowledge from PMs, biz dev, and just like other parts of the business. And I'd kind of been doing that with this kind of goal in the back of my mind of like, maybe I'll go and do my own startup one day. And so it was always towards that kind of goal. Like I'd started my own clothing brand on the side and tried to learn about how to run that by myself, and just working with like product managers in terms of like when we were working on a project together, I'd jump from like, I'd be open to working on the product spec doc with them and open for them to be jumping into Figma and designing things with me. So there was always that kind of like merging of skills, but I never really kind of thought about this as my end goal or like something I'll be doing. And I kind of fell into it a little bit at the start of last year. I think I did some freelance work over the Christmas break when I was just, on holidays, and I did some work for another agency, and I saw like the inside of how the agency worked, and they were doing this productized service where they were charging like 10 to 12K per month to these clients. And I saw that, I was doing some UX work for them. They were getting another designer to do some of the bulk design work. And like, I knew the hourly rates and everything. So I knew that the profit margin was quite high with this thing. And I did some calculations, and I saw that, she's got multiple clients, the owner of the studio. And I'm like, this is quite lucrative. She's onto something really good. And then I started thinking about it more, looking at others like Brett from Design Joy, doing a lot of kind of research, looking at YouTube videos, podcasting. And about mid last year, I was on a holiday in Europe, and throughout that whole holiday, I was just like absorbing all that content, audiobooks, reading, watching. And by the end of that trip, I'd kind of convinced myself I'm going to do this. And so I was working full time at that point, and then decided, okay, let's go for it and give it a shot.
Nice, really nice. So I think something that's really interesting to many people that try to actually do like you did is, why did you, and this is actually one of the most asked questions, is like, how do you find your first customers, and what was your story about that? Because it's every time is different. So I'm super curious.
I get asked a lot. Definitely, yeah, it's definitely the most asked question for sure. Like, how do you land clients? How do you like get your leads?
Yeah.
And I'm very fortunate. Like, I've been in a position where I haven't had to reach out. I've had all my clients come to me, and I honestly think it's because I have the work experience. So when I started, obviously I didn't have any like clients under my studio portfolio at that point, but I did have a rich work history. Like I'd worked at Google for 6 years. I'd worked at Immutable, which is like a big crypto gaming startup.
Yeah.
Scale up now, proper company. I worked at Infinex, worked at Ogilvy. So I had like a lot of big names and experience where it kind of proved that I can deliver for these companies. And because of that, it kind of just built a lot of trust. I think with the clients, they can see the clients I've worked with in the past and where I've worked, and that just gave them instant credibility to go with me. And that's basically been it. Like I've had to focus on content to make myself known and like get the awareness out there, but all the clients have been approaching me either through my professional network, personal network, or referrals from past clients. And like that's a pretty, like I haven't been in the agency game for long, and I don't know how to, I'm just making stuff up as I go, but like it feels like that's the golden ticket right there. Like if you can be in that position where you don't actually have to do cold outreach, they're coming to you, and then you get lots of like interest and you can pick and choose the projects. I think that's kind of like the ultimate goal as an agency owner, because I feel like the projects you'll take on will be more interesting.
Yeah, so it's really like, I feel crypto companies are almost like, oh yeah, I need to go working with this guy because he knows his shit, right? Like he knows crypto, like the design leaders are like really focused on crypto. And this is something that I also like recommend people, is they try to do kind of like design in everything. Like what, let's just focus on something. And I think this is something that you read on really, really well. So
it's definitely something that has, so go on.
No, good.
Yeah, I'm just going to say it's definitely something that I've gone back and forth with in my mind, but when I like think about it and focus on it, it's definitely one of my greatest points of success is being able to niche down into Web3 and get those clients rolling. And now I'm kind of branching out to do some AI stuff as well, but I can only do that because I've already got an established credibility and brand. And part of me, like I've worked at Google in tech, and so I don't want to just limit myself. I want to do like any tech startup really. Like I want to work on these projects, but I realize that if I'm too broad, there's a lot of competition, and like if people are looking for specialists, especially with crypto, you kind of need that deep context. So I kind of figured that having that niche and that focus has been really helpful for me. And even though like at points I'm like, I just should remove Web3 and crypto from my site, but then you're competing in a bigger game. SEO is like impacted. People don't know like what you're known for, and it becomes harder to land clients. But if you become known as the go-to person in this or that, then you're going to have a much better chance of success.
Of course. And I think this is what I started to see with your strategy on X. You start to post more and more things about how crypto is working. I've seen stuff about like stable coins, or they're working and stuff like that. So is this part of your strategy to get more customers, or is this part of something else?
So
I'm curious.
Part of it, like part of the reason clients come to me is because they can trust and they can see that I've had contacts in the space. And part of that is positioning yourself as a leader in the space and as someone who knows what they're talking about. So even if I'm sharing like something very, general about wallets, some client will see that and comment on it and then book a call. And it happened like 2 weeks ago. I did a post about blockchain and some comment on it turned out to be a potential client. They booked a call and we've been negotiating. And so like this content kind of helps drive that authority and the perception of you and your brand. So that's like one part of it. And I guess the other part, which is kind of stemming from all this and all the followers and questions I get asked a lot, is that I'm leading to start another side thing, which is about education for designers who want to kind of upskill on Web3 and AI. So all this content is me kind of building up to like become an authoritative figure in the crypto space as a designer. So I become known as the guy to go to, and then also to help educate other designers so they can, get into crypto. Because I feel like there's definitely a lot of complexity in crypto, and a lot of people don't know where to start. And so that's kind of a way to try to help people, get a better understanding and take that first step into expanding their career.
Nice. So tell me more about maybe just how you approach your marketing funnels. Because I suppose like people are starting to know about you by maybe word of mouth, but then what's happening next? You talk about booking calls, but after that, what's happening?
Yep. Yeah, so there's not like a crazy amount of stuff I'm doing. So I'm mainly focused on content on X and LinkedIn. And very much tied to my personal brand, which also has, Halaska Studios. It's a big part of that in my profile and all that. And so at the moment, most of my leads and most of my efforts are on this organic content to grow my audience, to further position myself as an authority figure in the space. And that's like the core thing. And then I push people to my website, they book a call through the website on Calendly, and then we chat and it goes from there. I've been investing a little bit in SEO recently, so starting to get that. It's more of a long-term play. Like you don't see results straight away, but the more you earlier you started, the better, and you can build up from there. And then there's also the Google Ads side, which I'm starting to look into now. And another thing I've done recently is some sales funnel training on doing things like lead magnets, where I can create some resources for founders. They sign up to receive it, then they become part of an email flow in ConvertKit, and then I can send them emails and go from there. But that's all in early stages. I've been starting to set that up, but I haven't really been making the lead magnets as such yet, but I've got the systems in place. And so that's one thing I'm going to kind of expand on, and I'm planning to do that as well as part of the separate brand. I'll be doing that at the same time to kind of like grow those funnels. But yeah, primarily it's organic content that I've been focusing on. And then there'll be a little bit of paid for the lead magnets once I get that all set up.
And also we talked about that already, but probably your YouTube channel. So it will be like expanding even more on different social media. Yeah. So
and my plan is,
what will be your strategy with that?
Yeah. So I plan to create informative content, maybe some free training, some tips and tricks, and record it as a YouTube video. You hopefully use AI tools to kind of cut that into like a series of different shorts and reels that I can then post to Instagram and also to TikTok, because I currently have a TikTok and Instagram for the studio / personal brand, but I haven't really posted anything there. So part of this video content, so this video content I'll repurpose and build those channels to get more leads in that way. And I think once I'm posting more about the like tips and tricks and the educational content, I feel like that's going to provide more value, because I guess one of the really important things is knowing your audience. And as a studio founder, I think one thing I've learned is that you look at my ex following, you look at other studio founders as well in the space, and a lot of their following is other designers, not necessarily clients. And so when you think about sales funnels and lead magnets, like it's easy for me to create like a resource for like how to design something and put that out there, but that's going to attract designers, right? And that's going to build that audience. Yeah. But when you think about your potential clients, I'm like, that's not my potential client. My potential client is a startup founder in crypto. And I guess the crypto community on Twitter is small. Not small, it's pretty large. But like if you can get into that community, like that's where you can stand out. And so thinking about how to like separate the content. Yeah, definitely. Very active. I'm not sure exactly how big the crypto founder audience is on things like TikTok and Instagram, but I think I'll be focusing that more on the designer education stuff, and then focus some lead magnets that I'll share through like LinkedIn and ads through the other stuff.
Yeah, I think the most difficult thing with crypto is that the more active communities are all about quick gains. You know what I mean? So how do you kind of like cut through the noise and put your content so you establish yourself like an actual builder in the space, and not like some sort of like part of the degen community, they call themselves this way, where it's just like crazy meme coins and stuff like that. I think that's the most difficult thing.
It is. I don't think I've mastered it either. Like I haven't been actively trying to do that, because I guess, as you mentioned, like the trends are changing like daily in crypto. There's always something new and some big development happening, and the best that I can do is try to stay on top of it. So I'm just always aware of what's happening, but it's impossible. There's too much happening at all times, but you can do what you can. It's something that I haven't been actively pursuing that. All I've been trying to do is like just become part of the community and understand it. And then there's actually the other thing I forgot to mention was there's also like Telegram groups and communities out there for crypto. And so it's not just Twitter. Like I'm part of a Australian crypto builders Telegram group, and I've had a lot of clients through there, because you do work, people refer you, and you're just active in those communities, and people get to know you there. And so there are things like that, and I think that's the biggest bang for buck, rather than trying to become like a Twitter influencer posting about the latest coins or trends, because I feel like there's a high risk of people seeing your content as this is someone who's trying to like, just like shill this new coin or like pump his bags.
Your reputation can be
stuff like that.
Be like broken in like 2 minutes.
Exactly.
One post and that's over.
For sure. And it changes completely. So I try not to like do anything along those lines. It's more about like the education and I guess the difficulties of UX for Web3 and some of the complexities there. I try to talk about that, and I did a lot more of that when I first started. And I think that really helped as well. Like a lot of my posts, they had a big reach because no one is really talking about like Web3 UX at that point. And there's a few other players now, which is great. But at that point, there wasn't much. So yeah, and those problems, you know, they're being solved bit by bit, but they're still very prevalent. So the pain points are very known and real. So I think posting about the pain points and like hinting at how we can solve it and suggesting things how we can solve it, even though it's very hard technically to solve some of these problems, like at least showing that you're thinking about it kind of will make you very appealing to the potential clients there.
Okay, well, that's thanks for all those details on your marketing. So it's quite like I feel you have like many ways of getting clients, even if this is like kind of like working for yourself automatically when you just kind of like put yourself out there, right?
Yes.
So now I want to circle back on the success you had. So with you built a 1 million plus studio. A lot of people are thinking that to reach this type of number, but most productized service with this type of numbers, let's take the example of Brett, but people are working alone, and I feel this is not your case. You built a team, if I'm not mistaken. So just tell me more about that. It's maybe how hard it was at first to get started. Is it difficult to have a team? Yeah.
100%. Yeah, it's very difficult because, like, you know, especially with my studio starting out, it's tied to my name, right? So it's heavily based on my reputation. And so when a client comes to me, I want to make sure that I'm delivering the best job, and I don't want to just assign the project to someone and wash my hands of it and just get the money they can execute, because that you don't know about the quality of the output. And so I want everything that comes through my studio to be my high quality bar. And when I was at Google, there was this internal kind of thing called product excellence, which I really love. It was about development, design, product management, everything had to hit a level of quality before it got released. And it wasn't just like, have you polished the pixels and the rounded corners are there? It was like, is this robust? Is it accessible? And there's like a quality bar that is hard to hit. And so I know that as you hire and grow, finding the right people who can live up to that is very, very hard. And so this whole year, it's been heavily based on, like, I find good people, but I also guide and help upskill my team as well. But I can provide some direction and guidance, and I have other people like jump in and do a lot of the execution. But I'm still across like most or all of the projects. And with hiring, it's tough. So I've been using contractors basically the whole year. I haven't hired anyone full-time. I'm the only full-time employee. I've had a couple of contractors who have been with me for like since the start, basically from like a few days a week to 5 days a week, and kind of varies. And so when I grew, I was using contract. I learned a lot of lessons there. It was very hard to hire the right people. A lot of people would just like flat out lie on their resumes and lie to me about their Web3 experience. Like I put someone on one of my earlier projects who had talked about how they had a lot of Web3 experience, but they couldn't share the work because it was under NDA. And then it was a referral from like another person I worked with who I trusted, and I was like, okay, I'll give this a shot. And then turns out that person didn't even have a crypto wallet, had not experienced it. And so the client was like very upset and disappointed. Like it's going to take, I guess at that point in time, crypto moves fast, as you said. So 2 weeks, 3 weeks of wasted effort waiting for someone to contextually onboard is way too difficult. So there's a lot of lessons there about hiring the right people. And as I've grown, now that it's 12 months, like I'm trying to get to this point where I can hire more people. I want to hire like a senior UX lead who can take over some of my responsibility on some of the projects while I still focus on other projects. So I'm still involved, but I can start to like split that effort. And then also with my full-time hires or freelance full-time contractors, kind of build that up. And I guess one of the things that's held me back a lot throughout this journey is not really knowing. Like I didn't know how successful the studio would be. So when I started, I didn't want to hire. Like even though money was coming in, and I think I had like 180K in the second or third month, and I'm like, I should hire. I need to expand. And exactly what happened, like you go through these like peaks and troughs, and you don't have the consistency because it's new. And I never had the kind of belief or the confidence that, you know, it's going to be straight up that I can afford to hire someone full time, and I'm not going to get to a month where, oh, there's no client work coming in, I'm going to pay that salary. And also for like, not just for like my money, but also for these people, like they have their own livelihoods, right? These designers that I'm working with. And like I've had one guy, he wanted to quit his job and come work for me.
Wow.
And like I told him not to, because I couldn't guarantee that I would, like in 2 months, that I would still have enough work for him to do. And luckily it has grown a lot, but throughout the year, like I mentioned earlier, like I've had a baby. So like I had this period of, you know, not growing, and I kind of like just kept it slow and steady in that time and then picked it up again. And so hiring is definitely something that I've been thinking a lot about. I've been holding back on hiring full-time because of like just not knowing, but now I've got enough consistency, and the clients I'm getting now are like longer term, higher value clients where I can bring someone on for a certain amount of money for like more permanent thing. But yeah, hiring is definitely hard. And yeah, like I mentioned, I use contractors.
Nice.
Some of them are like full-time contract, but it's not like full-time employees, just because of the unknowns of what's ahead and the responsibility I feel for like someone quitting their job, risking like they've got kids and a family, and then next week I'm like, sorry. Yeah. So, you know, I want to establish myself a little bit more before I make those massive moves. But I think over the next 12 months, it's something I'm going to be growing with for sure.
Nice. So I guess my next question is about, so obviously I'm super biased, sorry, because I'm working on the tool to create, manage productized services, but I'm really extremely curious about what's your workflow? Like, how do you work with your team? How do you communicate with clients? Because I feel people shouldn't be sweating too much on the details when it comes to their workflow. If this is something that works for them, that's beautiful. So I'm not pushing to use orchestra all the time. Sometimes it doesn't make sense. So what works for you? I'm super curious, and I feel a lot of people are curious too.
Yeah, so I changed, I guess, throughout this process, where at the start, I was pushing more towards the model of sign a client up, give them a task board, they add the issues to the tasks board, and then I take it on.
Yeah.
But in reality, that never really, like, I think it happened for one client, but it never really happened post that, just because of the types of projects that I take on. And so my clients are usually, you know, startup founders who want to build out an MVP, or they have an existing digital products and they want to improve it. Because my specialty is user experience design. Like, I worked in Google Photos, mobile apps, like end-to-end experiences, not websites and brands. Even though we offer websites and brands and we do a lot of that, our main, like at our core, we're UX product designers.
Yeah, so we're talking about a full app, full website.
Exactly, like
from A to Z.
Crypto exchange, a whole like crypto wallet, a mobile app for like trading and things like that. So all these kind of things. And yeah, so I think with these type of clients and the type of clients I was getting where they're kind of early stage, they don't really have the UX figured out, and they don't have specs for you to work off. And so every time I was like, what do you need? It's changing, it's unknown. It's like, oh, we need to do this onboarding flow. We want to connect your wallet. Okay, like, are you using Rainbow Kit? Like, how do you want to do it? Are you using Passkey? And like, I don't know yet, but let's just do it this way. We can like tweak it as we go. So with my type of clients that I'm getting, they didn't have specs, and for them to sit down and put tasks on a board, it's kind of a lot of friction for them, and they don't have the answers. So like, that'll be even more effort. And so the experience then becomes one that it's like more painful for them. And so the way I've been approaching it so far is like, when I have a client, they get a project lead in like 90% of the cases, that's me. And so I just work directly with them, understand what they need. And because I've got the experience of building products, I can translate that to my design team. And, you know, the communication is there. The designers are working directly with the clients as well, but I'm overseeing and kind of translating and guiding in that aspect. So that's our basic workflow for how we currently work, is like project lead, designer, translate the needs into tasks from our designers. We work together, and it's more of a collaborative, communicated process. On the other hand, I think if I was focused more on brands, websites, and just like UI design, then the task-based approach, like, I think it works really well. It's just that in my case, it's more of a, we don't know what we're building, we don't have specs. And if I was to ask my clients to sit down and do that, they would begrudgingly do it, but then a week later, it'll be out of date. And so like, there's a really quick iteration with crypto and the MVP. So it just worked a lot better for us to be working just verbally and in video calls and async, and just taking what the client needs and translating that in action. Just like it'll be done if I was embedded full time within a team as like a design team, like that's how it would function. We'll talk to the product managers, figure out what's next, help them understand like, okay, how this plays out into UX, and then we can deliver on it.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I feel you got a point that when you just charge so much money to a customer, you maybe don't want them to do all the work when it comes to organizing tasks.
Sure.
And I've seen on Orchestra, I've seen most agency owners are actually creating the task for the customer, and what they use tasks for is for their own organization, for their own planning, but as well for communication. Because one of them told me something really interesting. He told me that doing the work is 50% of your actual work as the agency owner, and the other 50% is communicating your value. Because like if you show them that your team is doing a lot of tasks, they feel that even if they pay a lot of money, there's a lot of thing going on, and that's really important. And this is a good way of doing it. But I really like the way you phrase it when you say that you're kind of like extension, of their team. Essentially, you're just like their design team, which is really nice.
Yeah, and I really actually agree with that point. The communication is so vital, and not only for keeping the clients on track in terms of like deadlines coming up, you're waiting on things. I had a client I'm working with at the moment, and they want to launch their website in 8 days, but the content isn't figured out yet. And so like there's a lot of things where if you have the task there and visibility, it's like, okay, this needs to be done by this date.
Yeah.
But this is blocked by this task because we don't have any of this stuff yet. And then there's another thing like motion, which is blocked by this because you need to know what content. It really helps. And and it definitely like adds, I guess, confidence in that you're working on stuff and things are happening. And some of my clients, we're in like, sometimes we have daily stand-ups with some of my designers, and Figma iteration is like daily for certain ones. But like it literally is like an internal design team, but just like a studio instead of hiring full time. That's how we kind of function. So like in those cases, they know what's going on and they can see it. But maybe there's the founder who's hired you, or someone else has like hired you and they don't know what's going on. And so like there's definite benefits to that task-based approach where it also helps internally as well, like keep things on track and know what you're working on and prioritizing things for sure.
And that's really good to have your story, because a lot of people kind of like try to carbon copy what Brett from Design Joy did when it comes to productized service. And sometimes this model doesn't work because let's take the example of coding, for instance. A lot of people are trying to do a productized service, but for coding. So you get like a coding partner. And I feel that your workflow will perfectly fit with coding as well, because it will be more communication, more a closer team that works together compared to, for instance, Brett, where there's a lot of kind of like distance between what he does and his customer. And this is totally fine. It works really well for him. So that's really cool, really cool. And I can't wait for someone to actually find the perfect workflow for coding and productized service. I feel we're super close.
Yeah, and just quickly on that, like Brett's model, it's great, but it's very transactional, and so it's good for high volume. And he's killed it. Like he's getting a lot of money, a lot of clients, and his reputation is bringing in constant clients, so he can kind of pick and choose, and he's doing amazingly well. But each client is, I guess, lower lifetime value. You get the stuff done, you move on. Maybe they'll come back for more, or like keep it going. There's like clients that do that, which is great. But in my world, it's more, they're kind of longer term, higher value products. And as I mentioned, like I think 80% of my new leads are from referrals. And so I think the way of working collaboratively with the client, we're in Figma, we're doing stand-ups certain days, we're in meetings, we're like on Slack and Telegram, sending memes, that builds relationships too. And then that is more likely to get me a referral later on. And because we're having fun and we're doing it together. And I've been working for like 18-20 years as a professional designer, and one of the things that I've definitely taken away from my career is that collaboration is so important. And
for sure,
designing in a silo is like the worst thing you can do. Like unless you're just like this super specialist brand designer who's known for like their craft and people throw money at you to like do your thing. Like in my experience, it doesn't work. You need to work with the developers, with the product team, to build a better output, because you need to talk and iterate and improve. And if you go off and design something based on a task without the right context, and you come back like, here's the thing, they'll be like, no, that's not what I wanted. Or it's like, okay, but they have no idea what's happened behind the curtain to get there. So they can just easily discount like, oh, no, that's not right. Even though if you had worked with them and communicated, which is still possible through the task-based approach, you just have to have the right levels of communication there. But if you have the right specs and context and reasons why you've made decisions, and they know those reasons, then you're more likely to get to a better outcome than just like throwing something at a wall or at the client and hoping that it sticks.
Nice. Well, I feel that's already really nice, our discussion. The last question I wanted to ask is maybe if you would have done, maybe looking back, what would you have done differently with your agency? Because I guess you've done some mistake.
Yeah.
So what's your...
I think the primary thing would be around building your personal brand and posting content that resonates with your audience. And I think that's been the most, like the only reason I'm here where I am today is because I had some posts go viral. Every time that would happen, I'll get clients booking in, do that work, get more visibility, and it just like keeps that flywheel going. So the content is what attracts people and just keeps you front of mind. And I found like when I started, I had a little bit more time, so I was posting more, had a lot more hits with my content. And then all of a sudden I got super busy. I had like 13 clients in the second month that had signed up. And I was like drowning by it. And so my content game like surprisingly went down because I'm too busy with keeping my head above water, hiring, all that stuff. But then as soon as like those projects, because I guess the MVP life cycle is generally like 3 months or so. And so I got to a point after 3 or 4 months of the studio where like all these projects, like I'd finished designing the site, finished like designing the MVP, things were wrapping up. And then I had this moment of like, oh no, like all of my clients or like most of them are finishing up in the next month or two. I need to get new clients after like this massive explosion at the start. And then so I started posting on posting content more, and that would instantly get more leads going. And the other thing with like content, there's a whole like conversation you can have about posting content and like, is it cringe, posting numbers, building in public, all that stuff. But the reality is like every time I post something about revenue, I feel guilty and like I feel cringe that I'm doing it. And in the early stage, I was looking around at people like Nick from Bake Design and what they're doing. And I just like, honestly, I saw one of his tweets and he said, we just signed a client for like $5,000 or whatever. The client is blah, blah, blah. And we're excited because blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I'm going to try this. Basically copy paste that structure, made it my own, changed it, put an image of my Notion ticket there with the amount. And like that went viral. And every time I did something like that and those posts went viral, I would get a couple of new clients book in and then I would sign some more clients. And same with the revenue numbers. If you post about it, like I hate it, and I like, I'm not hate it, but I feel guilty when I do. But the reality is every time I've done that, a bit of
showing off.
Yeah, exactly. But reality is it's always resulted in new clients. And so as a business owner, as I'm trying to grow, you know, I'm trying to support my family, my newborn.
Of course.
Like if I'm getting more clients, my business is growing. So like I can just like suck that up and just like post it. And because I feel like if you do it in at least a nicer way and your content is not all about that, you're still adding value, trying to be authentic, then it's okay ish. Like I prefer not to, but it helps. But on the other hand, it also helps inspire other people as well, because a lot of designers comment, you know, they reach out to me, they can see what's possible, and it pushes them to like try harder and like do their own thing, and that's amazing. They can inspire. But yeah, the content game is definitely the number one kind of thing that I'll focus on, like building your personal brand and getting that following. And then the second thing would be hiring the right people and just being, of course, I do more due diligence when you do that. But yeah, I think the content is like the number one thing which has led to success.
Yeah, and I'm also guilty of that. When I'm heads down building, it's really hard to just like think about the right content to put out there. But I feel sharing what I'm doing today with you, it's sharing your story, will be helping me also a lot to get this story out there. Okay, well, Chris, thanks for this conversation. It was awesome. I'm sure it will help a lot of people trying to think kind of like outside the box, because you definitely did that, I think, with your studio, because so many people were trying to copy what Brett did in terms of model, in terms of workflow, and you did something different, which I love. And obviously 1 million in a year with a newborn is crazy, so congrats again.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, and hope someone gets some inspiration from this. So yeah, thanks.
Nice. Thank you.
Cool. All right, cheers.